Good evening and welcome to Tuesday Folk People. My name is Maddie Leedham and today we are going to be speaking to singer-songwriter and activist Joe Holtaway. Born and raised in southwest Cornwall, Joe has been a keen performer since childhood, going on to form several bands, including the popular Cornish folk trio The Sea Kings, who achieved great successes in supporting Joan armour trading and performing at Glastonbury. With rave reviews from BBC Six Music and BBC Introducing, Joe focuses his music on activism and spirituality. He is involved with Peace Sounds, which describes itself as a home for music and audio singing and speaking for peace. He completed a year's residency in the Nobel Peace Prize nominated Buddhist monk Thích Plum village. Joe performs at retreats, protest camps and demonstrations with organisations including Friends of the Earth and the Quakers. Also involved in WUYA, the Wake Up Your Artist Retreats. He does courses that bring together a love for creativity, self-care and activism. So without further ado, let's welcome Joe Holtaway to the studio. Hello Joe, how are you?
Hi Maddie, fine, thank you. Nice to be here with you today.
Excellent. It's great to have you. Very exciting because we haven't really explored kind of the spiritual side of music before, so it's wonderful to be able to bring that to our audience. Now, obviously, we've heard a bit of an introduction for you, but we haven't heard your music. So it would be really great if we could have your first song, which is Down to the River to Pray. Can you tell us about this before we hear it?
Yeah, sure. So I would have first heard this song probably my parents, folk musicians, my mum and my Cornwall dad, my stepdad, and I would have heard it sung with them at festivals. And then around that time as well, it was in the film "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," which is where I think I always go back to that recording, that Alison Krauss's recording. In the film, it was kind of put in context with, it was probably like set in the late 1800s when people were enslaved in the States, and there's these three main characters who are on the run from prison, and they come across this congregation in the river, and the idea is that they're doing baptisms in the river, and one of these characters goes into the river and has this kind of beautiful experience. But it's interesting because it would seem that people around that time were just finding freedom wherever they could, and I think their spirituality of kind of bringing about like a more peaceful, loving community within the adversity they were experiencing. I really get that in this song, and that's why I'm so drawn to it. The beautiful piece. So decided to sing it for you.
Let's hear it.
As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh sisters, let's go down, we should come on down. Oh sisters, let's go down to the river to pray. Down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh brothers, let's go down, we should come on down. Oh brothers, let's go down to the river to pray. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh mothers, let's go down, we should come on down. Oh mothers, let's go down to the river to pray. Studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh fathers, let's go down. We should come on down. Oh, fathers, let's go down to the river to pray. I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, friends, let's go down, won't you come on down? Oh, friends, let's go down to the river to pray, down to the river to pray, down to the river.
Absolutely fantastic, Joe. I love that song so much, and I think it really, for me, it shows like how a song can be personal to a person, because obviously it means one thing for you, but then I remember one night when I was young, I was woken up to my sister humming that really quietly because we were sharing a room at that point, and it was just beautiful. I just think it's a beautiful song, and just having her humming it when like the moon was out and everything, and then being able to hear you sing it now, it kind of brings back all those memories, and it's just lovely. So thank you very much for singing that.
Welcome.
I'd love to now talk just a little briefly about something that we've mentioned before, and that is how it was thanks to support from certain figures in your life that you've managed to get into folk music, and you've managed to get us where you have today. So obviously you mentioned briefly before your parents, and they run that folk club. What's it called? The Dreamers Club?
Right, yeah, the Dreamers Folk Club. Yeah, they're part of a committee that they started it, and then they become part of a group that run it. Yeah.
And how did they support you when you were growing up and getting you into folk music?
I think, yeah, I reflected a lot on that growing up, and I think that the biggest thing for me with them was just how, whatever, I think it was the same for myself and my brother. I have an older brother. I think, my mum always said, whatever makes you happy, you should do. And I think she really embodies that sense of listening to your heart and being serious about that, in a loving way. So I used to go, or we moved in with my stepdad when I was about 8, I guess 7 or 8, and that's when, shortly after that, I guess maybe 5-10 years, they started the folk club, but in the times up to that, we were going to a lot of kind of folk gatherings and parties. There were always guitars around, people were always playing, and I just remember sitting in those circles and feeling such a sense of kind of inclusion, and hearing these songs, and they were kind of the soundtrack to those formative years between about 8 and my teenage years, and they were just kind of in me all the time, and so that really formed it within that context of like being allowed to just live within it and not be expected to do it, but just wanting to do it. And then as I got interested in singing and more, and like playing the guitar, it was just really encouraged. And then I remember kind of writing songs, and then my Cornwall dad was also writing songs as well, so that was there, and it just seemed like a really natural thing. I think also being able to share with people and have them listen and kind of appreciate what you were doing at a young age is really supportive. Yeah.
I also think that your formative years, as you've said, they can be sometimes quite awkward and quite isolating, because you're going through changes to your body and things that you don't necessarily understand. And so being able to share that through music is way more, I think, accessible and more appealing to like an adolescent necessarily than sitting down and speaking like straight directly to someone about what's happening. But through music you can be a bit more ambiguous, and then being able to share that, it must have been really kind of liberating and quite like accepting.
Absolutely. And I remember, as well as my parents, there was my parents' record collection, and I think my own collection of music at the time. I believe you kind of draw in what you need, and if you're encouraged to I was buying a lot of CDs, listening to a lot of music, and so were my parents. And so then there was a lot of music in the house. But it was, as you say, I think music is a beautiful way of reflecting on one's own experience and then just putting it out there and sharing it. And it's always touched me how like such personal songs from someone can then touch so many other people as well. It shows our connection, I think. Yeah.
But it wasn't just your parents, was it? Then you went to college, and that's when you formed the Sea Kings, am I right? But there was a figure there that really supported you in that.
That's right. Yeah, that was down in Cornwall. Yes, I was in the Sea Kings with two friends, Jake and James, and we were encouraged by the Sea Kings. Actually formed later, but we met each other at that point, and I was in a few other bands around that time, and they were in other bands, but we'd end up playing at the same music evenings that were mostly supported by someone called Alan Rideout, who's now passed on. So encouraging. And he'd be running concerts where you'd have people they could play like 3-4 notes on the guitar, and they'd play that, and then people would clap, and then you'd have other young people writing their first songs, and and he just believed in young people so much and made it his life. And it was a joy to be around him. So his spirit definitely lives on. He's encouraged a lot of young people to do what they love, and he's really kind of uplifted them. That was the thing. He made you kind of believe that what was in your heart was worth sharing, so yeah.
I think that it's so important to have these people in education who are supportive, because obviously it was a massive success for you having this support, because you went on to support Joan Armour Trading and performed at Glastonbury. So it just shows that having someone there who can encourage you is just it's what you need, because it can be quite disheartening often, the music industry, can't it? It can be very like you get knocked down, and if you don't have someone there to help you get up, sometimes it can be really hard.
I think it was interesting with Al, because he kind of embodied, it wasn't at all for Al about making money, about like making a success of himself by making other people successful. He was all about like just live now in the moment and do this thing that you believe in, and that's what's important. So absolutely, people are always in touch with the kind of the spirit of it, I suppose. We need that.
And I think with all the budget cuts currently in education, in the arts in education, we need more people like Alan. We really do. Like, that would be brilliant. Anyway, thank you very much for sharing that, and I think we should go for your second song, which is We Shall Overcome. Can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, sure. So this is another, in a similar vein to Down to the River to Play. It's an old spiritual song. This one was made probably most famous by Pete Seeger, who was a young singer-songwriter in the peace activist movement when Martin Luther King was speaking out against the war in Vietnam. And so Martin Luther King was touring around America, and I think by association, someone said music was always part of that. And so someone had heard Pete Seeger singing and said, "Oh, you should get this young man along. Really is in line with your politics and in line with this kind of spiritual aspect of what you're doing." And Pete Seeger bought this song, and it became quite an anthem, and continues to be so. It's about kind of a collective heart, I think, and a collective, a kind of activism and a collective wish for a vision of the world which you want to see through, and a belief, that adversity can be overcome by love. That essentially is what the song's about, I think.
my heart. Oh, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, and oh, deep in my heart, oh, I do believe that we'll walk hand in hand someday. We will live in peace. We will live in peace. We will live in peace someday. Deep in my heart, oh, I do believe that we will live in peace someday. The whole wide world around, the whole wide world around, the whole wide world around someday. And oh, deep in my heart, oh, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. That we shall overcome someday. That we shall overcome someday.
A song for activism, and as you previously mentioned, Martin Luther King Jr. And that is kind of quite fitting because Thich Nhat Hanh, sorry if I said it wrong,
Well
but
pronounced.
he knew Martin Luther King Jr., didn't he?
He did. Yes, he did.
And then you worked on his retreat. Can you tell us about Plum Village?
Yes, yeah, lovely Plum Village. Yeah. So yes, Thich Nhat Hanh, Vietnamese Buddhist monk, he was a young monk, and when the war in Vietnam was beginning to, devastate the lives of so many people, and he decided that he was teaching a lot and renewing a sense of kind of the idea that Buddhist contemplation also he felt at the time it needed to become something that also included people outside of those monastery settings, and he organized lots of young people that were his kind of followers to go and help with the villages, to rebuild villages and support people with education in any ways that they could. There was quite some resistance from actually both sides. They were quite confused. They didn't really, these young people were very much in the way of what was the fight they're fighting. And so they some of them were, and some of them died because of that. And then they said to Thich Nhat Hanh and some of his followers, you know, there's a chance here, you kind of get out, or we can't be sure what's going to happen. And so he decided, I mean, some of that effort continued, and they decided to keep doing that. But then he was offered exile, and Martin Luther King saw an opportunity, I think, to invite Thich Nhat Hanh to the States so that he could then speak out about the war and from his experience, and just give that kind of view of how devastating it was from the ground, you know, within those villages, and how difficult that was for people. So he came to the States and worked with a few different organizations to give those talks, and then became a teacher there, a professor, teaching on Buddhism, and then eventually was offered to, still not being able to go back to Vietnam because he left, he kind of went into exile, but was offered a village, or actually a vineyard in France, and yeah, that was like a disused vineyard, and then the idea was that they would make a village there, and that would be a place for refugees from the war, and then it went on to become like an international like visitor center, and there's a meditation hall there, and people go there to practice mindfulness and to learn from the life of Thich Nhat Hanh and the teachings. And then many people have kind of gone there and become monastics. There's monastics from all over the world, actually, Vietnam, but also America and Europe, and in all countries, really.
And what was your role
They
in
lived
Plum
there.
Village?
Yeah, so I went there first because I was involved in London in the movement, with young people, and meditation groups here in London. It's called the Wake Up Community, and then I went there for a couple of months to experience what life was like, living, like immersing myself, I guess, in the teachings. And then they offered me would I stay, because they were running an education project, making resources for school teachers to take back to their countries and to teach mindfulness in the Plum Village tradition, and they wanted some musicians to create some music for that. So I stayed as an artist in residence and did some songs for them, and then also was running like a small podcast from there where I'd record other musicians from the village, and also and I was also began writing an album of my own there. So all of that was kind of my kind of role, living there.
Wow. Sounds quite like a surreal experience, living in a vineyard in France, making music for an activist Buddhist monk. It's
It
just
was
amazing.
beautiful. Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, it was lovely. It's incredibly normal. It becomes very normal, I think, because the life there is very much there's morning and evening meditation. So just to kind of demystify that a bit, we're sitting down for half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening, in silence, with a small amount of guidance about following the breath, following your emotions, and with that as a beginning and end to the day, you kind of get into this rhythm with everyone else where I don't know, somehow there's kind of a connection with everyone and a calmness as well, and you're sharing that together. And then people eat together, and then every day there's some working. So I was going off to the studio, other people going to the farm and farming, other people welcoming guests. And then a couple of times a week there'd be community days where we'd get together, where there'd be a talk from some of the monastics about their what they're learning and offer the teachings they're offering. And then always there'd be get-togethers to sing songs and read poems, and people played football and all that stuff as well. So it was it's a beautiful place to live. Yeah, very nice.
And why do you think that music is important for spirituality and activism? Why, for both those things?
Yeah, there's that saying that music is like a universal language, and I always felt that growing up, like we were talking about before, sitting in those circles with my parents and having everyone singing songs. I think for me, I feel like everyone who picks up an instrument and sings a song does so in a moment of peace. They're able to do that, and even if there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world, there's something about believing in the power of creativity and picking up an instrument. And I guess it's the same for anyone, whether you're a painter or a sculptor or a poet, or you choose to put forward a vision of the world through creativity. And I think I feel like I recognize that in other people's music. There's a sharing of what's in your heart, and it's out there in a way that you can hear, and it's healing, and you can sing together, and certainly something about people singing together. I've found that in a lot of groups that I've been in, for example, like the Quakers, Extinction Rebellion, involved in that as well. And in all of these movements, there's always songs have a place that's, it's there's a phrase that comes to me, which is a book actually by someone called Charles Eisenstein, and he's written a book called The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. And I think songs open that door somehow to that kind of connection on which a peaceful future is surely built on, you know.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, shall we have your third song,
Yeah.
which is called Oak Tree? Can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, sure. So it's actually came out of a songwriting workshop that I was giving at a festival called Greenbelt Festival. And in these workshops, I would ask people it was based on something called the Celtic prayer form, which is a very kind of nature-based idea of spirituality. And the Celtic prayer form says like, it's someone wishing someone else the peace of the shining stars to you, and the depth of the great ocean to you, and the sound of the winds to you, and stuff. And so I took this idea and I went and built it into a workshop where I would ask people to take a moment to contemplate what they wanted to hear for themselves. So in a moment of, you know, unrest, you might feel like you need the strength of the oak tree, for example, like this song, or you might need the song of the whale. People have come up with so many beautiful phrases. And then I'll improvise some music, and then everyone else in the workshop will sing that line to the person. So they'll just be quiet and listen, and something emerges, some improvised music, and then someone will start to sing, and then suddenly everyone's singing to that person. And yes, so someone said in the workshop, the resilience of the oak tree, and I sang it over this piece of guitar music that I'd been playing around with for a while. And I thought afterwards, there's something there. And so I sought permission from the person. Would you mind if I kind of take this and try and turn it into something? And I just couldn't, I just didn't want to let it go. It just felt so precious. And then it was actually at New Year, I finished it a couple of years ago. So it's about finding solace with trees. There's a nice phrase I heard once, which was, trees are the biggest living things that you can hug. Which I thought was really lovely, and it makes you think there's a wisdom there. I mean, you know, there are living beings and they stand the test of time, and there's so many wonderful metaphors: roots into the ground, reaching into the air, bearing fruits, patience. And and growing up, I've always kind of been aware of the trees around me. Again, my parents are very much into their, like, they can tell you which trees are which, and there are some trees I think that just have that come and sit underneath me kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And that's what this song's about.
And just in case any of our audience don't know quite how complex trees are, read The Secret Life of Trees. It's fascinating. And there's just so much. They're just amazing. Loads more than I ever thought.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, let's hear it.
Down into the silence, down beyond the road. Follow to the forest for to see a friend I know. When my heart and head are heavy and hopelessness arose, and I know I cannot be alone. For there is a friend who resides beside me. For there is a friend. There is a friend who resides beside me till I'm calm again. Oh, the patience of the old oak tree, standing in the shimmering light, standing over me. Oh, the patience of the old oak tree. May it come to me. down beyond the branches over bracken under brae, not long before the leaving of the day. Out into the clearing where the light gets in, for my head and heart the healing can begin. For there is a friend who resides beside me, for there is a friend, for there is a friend who resides inside me, till I'm calm again. Oh, the patience of the old oak tree, standing in the shimmering light, standing over me. Oh, the patience of the old oak tree. May it come to me. Oh, the patience of the old oak tree, standing in the shimmering light, standing over me. Oh, the patience of the old oak tree. May it come to me.
Fantastic. I love that you recorded that in nature. So you're singing about a tree and there you are with the trees. It just really adds just this amazing element to it. And like,
That's
how did it feel actually performing it there
yeah,
outside?
felt good. Yeah, it's my friend Josh, another lovely songwriter, Joshua K. And he has a film. He studied film and runs this thing called Conscious Film Co. that do music videos and festivals and lots of different interesting projects. And yeah, it was his idea that we would go and do that, and it felt great. It felt really nice. Yeah, I remember at some point there's a small in that video. There's a little spider that crawls up the
Yeah.
microphone stand, and that was crawling on my leg at one point. And I just thought, like, this is perfect. This is just what this is. Yeah. So yes, it was. It was. It felt like the video really honored the song. Yeah.
Definitely.
Mm.
And although I'm not sure that a lot of people would find a spider on their leg
Go for
perfect, I think they might
Sure.
hate it.
Mm.
But you do
Yeah.
you. If it works for you, that's brilliant. Excellent. So, I wanted to talk now about what you're embarking on in the future, and you
Yeah.
are training to become a chaplain for the Quakers or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's something that's kind of quite present actually. It's the next set of trainings is coming up in the next few weeks. Yeah, the Quakers, I've been very fond of the Quakers. They're very much connected with Plum Village actually, and I first went to the Quakers many years ago with another friend who was going there, and I like what they do. If you don't know, just very briefly, they're a group that came out of, well, it's 1500s they started, but it was a group of young people that decided that while they appreciated kind of going to church somehow, they just wanted actually to be together and to not have any one person tell them what to do, but just to speak from their own experience. And this kind of form of faith has continued, and so it's the same today. You kind of go, you sit in silence in a room, and then people kind of share from their experience about life in a way within like this kind of spiritual context. But people talk about anything like politics, family life, whatever, and then it's a sense of like an ongoing discernment of what peace means. They decided that they wanted to be peace workers. So what does that mean? And then over the years, they've come up with all different projects. They reformed prisons very famously, like in the early days. They set up war ambulances that would go into battlefields and take people from either side into hospitals, look after them. They're involved in amnesty early on, fair trade. They've done some incredible things, and I was interested in being a part of that community. And so I became a children's worker. I worked with them with my local meeting. It's divided into meetings, and I go to my local meeting and do the children's work. And a chaplain is someone who has access to places like hospitals, prisons, detention centers. It's kind of a recognized role in that sense, and you kind of get access to be with vulnerable people, and that really interested me. And I've met a few chaplains from different faiths who, so typically in, like, say, a hospital, you'll have a chaplain from the Quakers, you might have one who's Jewish, you might have a Muslim, one Buddhist. So it's all like, and they get these very multi-faith offices within these different institutions. So that's something I'm kind of interested in finding out more about. I don't really have any clear idea where it will go, but that kind of feels quite right somehow, just to kind of step into that and see. Also very interested in people like who have found themselves homeless, and also working with people in the asylum system as well. It would be interesting to be with them and learn from people and be able to share my experience. So I'm looking forward to the chance to meet the people that it will kind of allow me to meet, and just kind of see what happens in a way.
Fantastic. Well, you'll have to let us know how it goes. We are running out of time, unfortunately, so we're going to have to go to your final song. Before we do hear about it and hear it, I just want to say a huge thank you from us here at Home Stage for coming along and chatting to us. It's been wonderful. So can you tell us about Green of Grasses, your final song?
Yeah, sure. So Green of Grasses is set in the Pennines, like up in the north, and it was based around I was doing some reading about land rights. So this was like back in I guess it would have been quite a thing at the time. There was a lot of landowners who were stopping people walking, and the famous organization that came out of that was the Ramblers, which a lot of people know, but it was actually quite a political act that started it. There was lots of young people who decided that they weren't going to be told where they couldn't walk anymore, and so they did a trespass, like a mass trespass, at a place called Kinder Scout, and it formed the Pennine Way. Like when they were given the right to ramble, that was part of it. Like that walk took on that location as part of the walk, and I was very moved by that, by the fact that like people would say, no, people are farming this land, but you're not going to take away the right that we have to be in connection with the earth and with walking. And so I actually dreamt that name, like I was reading about it, and then I in my dream there was like a young man who I was walking with, and then talked about the green of grasses, and then I woke up and thought, wow, that's really incredible to have had that dream, and I really want to try to put that into a song. So then I kind of built the life of that young person from that dream, and imagine a young person growing up around that area and just being in love with walking. And
I grew up in that area, loving walking.
Oh, really? Right. Oh, there you go. Excellent. So there we go. Wow. Perfect. What a perfect way to end today. So so that's what it's. So give me the green of grasses.
Grasses, the leaving of the day, fields and passes I will make my way. Born beneath a pennant, grew as the apple falls, not far from the tree that bore him, no, not far at all. Give me the green of grasses, the leaving of the day. Through the fields and through the passes I will make my way. Carried as a baby to the fields I would play, beside the pastures, pastures over hay. Give me the green of grasses, the leaving of the day. Through the fields and passes I will make my way. From lad to young man turning, learning the work that I would do. But when the day was done and the evening comes, I upon my walking shoes. Give me the green of grasses, but the leaving of the day. Through the fields and through the passes I will make my way. 'Cause God speaks to me in colours, and God speaks to me in sound. No, not need the company of others, no, it's best when there's no one else around. Give me the green of grasses, with the leaving of the day. Through the fields and through the passes I will make my way. In the evening, in the gloaming, when the sun be turned away, when I'm returning from my roaming to the resting of the day, and I hear them lads and lasses, I hear them by the inn, I hear their shouts and glasses when I'm returning from my passes. But me, I need no carrying, just give me the green of grasses, the leaving of the day. Through the fields and through the passes I will make my way.
Thank you very much for watching. To find out more information about future Tuesday Folk People sessions, please sign up to our mailing list or keep an eye on our social media or website.